hugging. We are hugging.
I miss the days when my biggest problem was an ever-present sing-songy twit.
Drink? I'm gonna drink. I am not having this conversation unless I'm drinking.
I think the most satisfying part of playing Jaskier in general is the multifaceted nature with which Lauren has created this character and Mr. Sapkowski. There is so much more to him, I think, in this season than the silly jokes. There's more than the catchy songs. We get to see a more well-rounded character, a textured character, and somebody who is, for the first time in his life, making real moral decisions and putting his own life at risk.
Thank you. We, all of us, would be dead without you.
Oh. It always feels really, really amazing to approach this character every time I return to him, because Lauren just keeps adding more and more layers, and I'm always so excited to explore them as the stories progress. Joe Trapanese, our amazing composer, and I worked really hard on the music throughout the pandemic before shooting, and it was the first time where I was able to have a little bit more ownership over the songs that Jaskier sings.
What for is the point of no return.
That meant that by the time we got to shoot the songs, it really felt very natural. I wasn't worrying about where the song was going or the tonal shifts that we were aiming to achieve. Turning up on set was exhausting because we were shooting all day long, and a lot of these were one takes, which just means that we didn't cut into it and there wasn't as much coverage as usual. There was no room to mess up. There was a real performative energy to it. It felt a bit like performing a play, really. Though it looks like we're filming indoors, we're actually exterior. It looks like we're in a tavern, but we're actually outside. So you can actually see the cold in my breath when I'm singing. You can actually see all of our wonderful extras, shivering in the background. And it meant that we all had to really come together and kind of use each other's energy throughout the day to kind of get something that didn't look like we were all freezing our cotton socks off in the middle of winter. So we left Jaskier on the top of a mountain in episode 6 of season 1. Somehow he got down.
See you around, Geralt.
We get to see him for the first time standing on his own 2 feet and discovering his own independence and discovering who he is when he's not defined by his friendship with Geralt.
Time traveling.
One of the last scenes that I shot was actually in the jail cell with Henry, and Henry and I had got loads of time to really discuss and work out where to pitch this. We didn't want to bring in guilt or shame. We wanted to bring in forgiveness and understanding, which is what all friendships should be based on. And it meant that by the time Henry and I shot that first scene in the jail cell, I think I ad-libbed a line about shoving something up your, well, I can't remember what it was.
Good sir, you would not know talent if I shoved it up your Geralt.
And Henry broke in the middle of the first take, and it just felt really normal. It felt like we were back and we were in sync again.
Okay.
There was moments where I get to, you know, dance around the script, but also really enjoy the very natural chemistry that Henry and I have. So I think Jaskier knows that the rift between them isn't forever, and sometimes time is required to heal those kinds of wounds.
You left me on a mountain. Have you seen these boots?
But also, he's not about to reignite this friendship easily. There are new terms to it, there's a new dynamic, and he's perfectly willing to say, hey, Geralt, we don't do this anymore. We do it like this now.
Yeah. Don't fucking Jaskier me, I'm talking to you. This is how this works.
But we got to see a stronger Jaskier, a Jaskier that is just as kind, just as light, but with a strength in him now, and with a sense of self-perspective, I guess.
I made new friends. Get over it. Jealous?
To be the mouthpiece for Lauren in these sort of scenes is always an absolute joy, because Sapkowski does do this in the books. He does get a little bit meta-theatrical. He does wink at the reader in a very knowing way, and the best way that we could translate that into the show was through Lauren's writing and through Jaskia's sort of meta-theatricality within the world anyway, which we've already seen.
There I go again, just delivering exposition.
Al, who was playing the guard on the day, we were filming at about 4 o'clock in the morning, and we read the scene together for the first time, and I started ad-libbing, and our wonderful director, Sarah Gorman, said, have you guys been practicing this? Have you guys been rehearsing in your trailers? And we said, no, we've just met for the first time, but it felt very natural, and there was a real natural chemistry.
Long-necked warriors with all their tools.
Oh, yeah.
And so I got to really dance around with some of the insults.
Am I gonna say it?
Yeah, I'm gonna say it.
I drew on pretty much every single Shakespeare play that I've ever been in or read.
A quarling feculence, a beef-witted, hell-hated, addle-pated goon.
It meant that we got to really, really enjoy Jaskia's ego for the first time in the series, I think. You know, he's now famous, he's now really well known, and he's using that to help people. But he's still got that recalcitrant side to him where if someone says, I didn't love it,
It's not your strongest.
we got to go,
Oh, yeah?
well then, explain why, Twitter.
It took me to the fourth verse to understand there were different timelines.
Oh, did it?
And that magic kiss.
That was a bit cheap.
Yeah?
And it's that open sort of dialogue that I always think is very like Mr. Sapkowski, but I applaud Lauren for using this kind of platform to enjoy the meta-theatricality of the show itself. Once again, we were shooting exterior in spite of the fact that it looks interior. Filming that scene was one of the most difficult but rewarding experiences of shooting season 2. I made sure that I stripped myself of as much artifice and indeed clothing as I possibly could so that I could be in a very cold space with the darkest thoughts that I could possibly summon up in my head. When a character like that is confronted with imminent death, you've got to really find a rawness and a natural way of talking. He tries to bargain, he tries to fight back, he goes through all the stages.
I don't know where they're going, and I don't know why you're doing this to me.
And Chris, who plays Rienz, is one of the most incredibly intense actors. He's so still. He brings the sadism to the character, the enjoyment of seeing someone else in pain, which is so wonderful because he's an absolute delight off set. He's one of the most wonderful people, and yet seeing the shift in him did so much work for me. I genuinely could find myself scared and fearful of my life. And this is the first time Jaskia has not had his best friend to come in and swoop in and save him from danger. And so, for the first time, we see him panicking.
Listen to me, please! Please listen to me. I am a bard.
Like, he doesn't have a backup plan, and he can't talk his way out of it. And that helplessness stayed with me for weeks after shooting that scene. I felt very, very raw and emotionally a little bit vulnerable after it because it really required a lot of emotional energy to try and commit to it as we did. The Monster Mash was grueling. It was great fun, but it was grueling. It was very, very challenging. It took us about 3.5 weeks, maybe a month to shoot that entire sequence. There were long days, lots of stunts. I spent most of that time under a table for about 3.5 weeks and scrambling around and screaming my lungs out with lots of men in green tights jumping around me as the basilisk. So it was a very bizarre experience. My first impression was actually ad-libbed in that episode, I believe. I think Freya just walked away whilst I tried to talk to her. And then I said something along the lines of,
Like father, like daughter?
that very much summed up Jaskia's outlook towards Ciri. My outlook towards Freya is completely different. I've so enjoyed working with Freya. She's got such a stillness and a naturalness to her tone when she's on screen. I often sneak behind the camera and watch her takes because I find it so fascinating. She's an absolute joy and so ridiculously talented that I can't wait to see like their dynamic progress into season 3. You know, there is a sort of kismet, there is an understanding between them, and there is something of the weird Uncle Yaskia about the whole setup. One big happy family, eh?
No.
I can't wait to have more scenes with her. She's astonishing.